us instead. But, we had an event that was incredibly awesome. But one of the things that we're going to be doing tonight, it's very important that everybody does, is sign the attendance sheet. We are going to be talking about Starry Meadows and upgrading grid power. And we are going to be conducting a vote this evening, so it's very important that you sign that attendance sheet so we can get our quorum numbers all properly. I'd like to start by introducing some of our other board members. First off, we have in the front here Jim Perham, our Vice President. We have Fred Goodman, our Secretary. Jill Furman, our Treasurer, right over there. She's the one you want to speak to about lifetime memberships and money. Yep. Dave Warner, our Member at Large, right there. Scott Donnell and Floyd Glick right here are our trustees. And then Stephen Poligo's right here, our webmaster. I don't think Vicky is. Nope. So okay. So let me just go over real briefly what our schedule is going to be this evening. The first thing that we're going to be doing after I'm done talking is Mr. Bryan Gibson is going to be giving a talk this evening. After that, we're going to have a brief discussion, hopefully from, let's see here. Somebody. From Ron Sparkman from Stardom Space. Hopefully he's got some really cool stuff going on. Is Ron here yet? No. Okay, well, hopefully he'll be showing up here shortly. Then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going into the Starry Meadows discussion. Hopefully that will last about 15 minutes. And then we're going to take a vote, and then we're going to take a break. After the break, we're then going to come back and we're going to talk about some business sides. So that's kind of the way things are going to work here this evening. I have a couple notes. First off, I want to give an update on the United States Air Force Academy telescope. First off, the Brigadier General has signed our agreement with them. So that scope is ours. So they valued that telescope at like $230,000. So they've done that. Some other exciting news. They are reopening their planetariums. And they're hoping to do that at the beginning of the year. They've got all sorts of new equipment in there. Another thing that they've done is they're asking us, or they're going to come to us and ask for some feedback once they put their program together, so that we can go in early and we can critique their actual program that they have and give them suggestions and whatnot. Another thing that the Air Force Academy has done is, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lunar eclipse in January. They want us to be involved in a lot of their STEM outreach events in conjunction with the planetarium. So we got that going for us. So that's kind of cool. Next up on the list here is I'd like to help Bidlack come forward. Actually, you can stay right there if you'd like.
But you have to stand up.
Yes. Yes, stand up.
Beach.
Oh, no. Let's say, how many hours do we have here? List. So I'll just read this letter real quick. It's not that long. It says, congratulations on your fine accomplishment with all 110 objects on the Messier list. In addition to the honorary Messier program certificate, the Astronomical League awards a clutchback pin to honorary Messier program members. The design on this pin is copied from Messier's own decorative, I can't even say that word. Can you say that word? Picture. It's described by him in his personal copy of his catalog. So congratulations, Hal. You also have a certificate that you can frame and put on the wall. awards that for those of you, how many of you did not attend Star Stare this year?
Shame, 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 shame.
We also made a really neat award, gave out a neat award from the Astronomical League to Bruce Bookout. This is the Master Observers Award. It takes a lot of work to get. Is it 10?
10 of the Astronomical League programs need to be completed.
So he has completed over 10 of those, or 10 or more, and he received this award at Star Stare. So I just want everybody to know that he got that at Star Stare. Okay, next on my list is we always do an introduction of new faces, new visitors. So is there anybody here that is a new member, has never been here before? If you could, I'll call on you one at a time. I'd appreciate it if you'd stand up, tell us who you are and why you're here. So you go ahead.
Involved with Von Braun Astronomical Society in Huntsville, Alabama. I was president for a while, and so I'm kind of keeping his legacy going. I wish that I was more involved with him when he was alive, but being involved with the child, and just so I wish he was here.
You had your own stars to take
But I
care
have
of.
all this astronomy equipment, and I don't really know for sure what to do with it. So, so here I am.
Great. Well,
And
thank you
I
for
know
coming.
Fred too, and Bruce.
We've known each other off and on now for about 12 years.
18 years.
18?
Yeah, I'm a June 2000.
Oh, okay.
Since she was 2,
Friends
she was
were
able to
able to
use
do
that.
We're so very sorry.
Do they see another hand there?
Marty McKeever, retired aerospace engineer, used to work for the Northrop Grumman out at NOPS and the Air Force Satellite Network. Been interested in observing for years, always thought a decent telescope would be outside my price range for casual observing. I stumbled into myself something for $65 the other day over at Goodwill. I had no idea what it is, so maybe after the meetings and everything is done, maybe Pete can, because I need adult supervision, that's what I need.
You came to the wrong place.
So in any case, I'm glad to be here, and my interest would be primarily, especially with smaller scopes, near Earth stuff, asteroid tracks, and maybe eventually Messier objects.
Right on. All right, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dan. I brought my daughter Emma here. It's our first time we live in the Springs, and I've always been interested in astronomy, and I just want to see what this club's about.
All right.
Really enjoy it. I do work at the Air Force Academy, so I would love to get involved in some of the stuff you mentioned earlier.
Okay,
So, yeah.
great. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
I think we're behind you.
An inch 7 Abras.
Wanted something to
All right.
Today we'll be Astro imaging is all about. You can only see so much with your eyes because your eyes can only detect so much. But which is great, but you can also go beyond that. This particular is a presentation it's a series of, for lack of a better word, we'll call it the next step. About a couple of weeks ago, I received a telephone call and it was from one of the members here, and he decided to ask me, well, what are you going to present in the July meeting? I thought, well, we haven't talked about new people getting into it for a while, and I thought, well, that would be good, and try to encourage them to try it if they've never tried any imaging. And whereupon I heard, oh, gee, well, we always have that kind of stuff. Maybe you should do something about what the next step would be. And so I gave that some thought, and I thought, well, I think that was a really good idea. So I did go ahead and prepare that. If this works here. I guess not. Hopefully my cat did. So I'm going to start with this, and then I need to make a number of other comments about it. But right now, I like to do quizzes. So I'm going to show 10 photos quickly and have you see if you can estimate how many of these are taken by amateurs versus professionals. Here we go. 1. 2. 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, what do you think?
One with the thumb over it.
All right. Yeah, I expected somebody would say all of it because that's what they did last time. If you really look at this second to last one, even Hubble couldn't take this picture. This was taken by the Juno spacecraft of the giant red spot, of course, as it was flying over. So my point here is, yes, all the other ones were taken by amateurs, but this one, if you think this was by an amateur, I think your expectations are a little high. So let's go on from that. All right, I'm going to start by asking you to take a hike. Normally you don't do that, but after I said yes and put this together, I started thinking, well, you know what? I really stand a high probability of losing half the audience because they already know this stuff, and then losing the other half because they don't. So I wasn't quite sure what to do. So I'm trying to find a way that will be, as you walk down this path meaning if you are imaging or even if you haven't been imaging, whatever you do, what's that next step? And is it worth the time, money, cost, and effort? I'm hoping you'll get something valuable from that. This, by the way, happens to be a picture very close to our RMSS site. My son took a day off and walked. This presentation is going to assume a couple things, but then I'm going to kind of change a little bit. It assumes that you know a little bit about, and maybe you have tried imaging the night sky. Maybe you have tried a nightscape, and that you own a DSLR camera and a tripod. If you don't own a DSLR, a tripod, or anything else, well, then you have to have a good friend that will let you do it. But other than that, we're going to kind of assume that. Now, since probably I just told half of you this has nothing to do with you, I figured, well, okay, I'll spend 5 minutes, maybe 10, giving you some things that will kind of update you quickly on what you can do. And hopefully some of it will be valuable to those that have tried nightscapes and haven't gone beyond it as well. I'm not going to do much, but if you look on the bottom at clarkvision.com, many other places on YouTube or online show you how to do this step by step. So Clark Vision is one of my favorite because Robert Clark was up in Denver, a NASA scientist. That's all he uses is a DSLR, and he has amazing photos. You can take a look at that. Okay. These first 5 I'm going to try to go through relatively quickly. The whole purpose of this is try to have some fun and enjoying what you're doing. I can't imagine why you would start doing it if you didn't think it would be fun, but you need to kind of set yourself up for success. So make it fun. If possible, do it with somebody. Find a friend. Nice if it's a friend that has some equipment or at least knows what they're doing, so it goes a little bit faster. I strongly suggest that if you're starting, if you haven't done anything before, and you have a DSLR, start with nightscapes, because they're relatively easy to do, and they can be very powerful. Add something interesting on the foreground. This one is by Michael Chamblum. I met him at one of the meetings, but you can see over where he lives, this Milky Way, it looks like a daylight photo, but actually it's taken at night, and he took a long enough exposure that you can see the yellow is some of the pollution and light pollution over the cities, and the foreground, very interesting. It looks like daytime, but he was able to correct it for that. Now that's something you can do if you've never tried imaging before. It takes a little bit of practice to get that good with this particular thing, but this is all within your capability if you have a DSLR and a tripod. You don't have to take really fast photos. This particular one, it actually shows the star trail. A lot of people like to do that, or at least play with it a little bit. The moon and probably Venus or something. 5 photos, 5 minutes each. Added together makes about a 25-minute trail of star trails here. And I like the photo. The only thing that bothers me is that tree. They normally don't grow that way. And the other ones are going, it probably was a fisheye lens, but it's still a cool photo, right? Small goals, expect little, be thrilled with every little success you get. I'm not trying to say it's hard, because beginning parts, you can do an incredible amount and be very, very impressed with it with very little investment of time and money if you give it the effort, like the picture before. Let's go ahead. Whatever you have is what you should start with. If you have DSLR, perfect place to start, and try imaging with that. You will need a wide-angle lens. The reason is because you want, unless you want star trails, the Earth moves, and if you have a telephoto lens or something close to that, you're going to get the trail. So you need to follow what's called the 500 rule. 500 rule is just simply a rule that says take the number 500, divide it by the focal length, and that's how many seconds you can expose without tracking. 500 divided by a 50 millimeter would be 10 seconds, for example. 200 millimeter, well, you get 2.5 seconds, and you're not going to be able to photograph very many stars in 2.5 seconds. That's why a 200 millimeter probably won't work. So set up something like this. All right, you can play with other exposures. There's a couple other techniques I'll just kind of real quickly add in here. Go one stop off of maximum if you haven't tried that with your camera and you've been doing a little bit of it. Shoot a wide angle, try to get up to 30 seconds if you can, which means like a 16, or actually 30 seconds would be a, well, let's see, 50. Anyway, it's going to be a wide angle lens, but you can try to play some other things. You can also, because the camera shakes when you take a picture, you can put a timer on it, and you won't have that vibration. If you use 2 seconds, still a little bit of vibration. Use 10 seconds, you have to wait 10 seconds before the picture, and I just don't have that time. So cable release is the next choice. Here's a lady with a cable release. Waiting 10 seconds for somebody to have it is just not fun. So I'm bringing this up only because if you have enough light, and if you have a fast enough ISO or things like that to be able to take a photo, try stopping down one stop from your maximum exposure. The reason for that is lens aberrations increase logarithmically as you go from the center. And if you can stop down one stop, you will significantly increase the quality of the image just by doing that. Of course, if you can't stop it down, shoot wide open. I've done that a lot of times. ISO, normally you'd use something like your camera would be a native, like 800 is typical. I would go to 1600 without a problem. Hey, if you're shooting something while you want a better one, I shot 25,000 and I was actually happy with it. So it might not be now, but I was happy then anyway. Okay, RAW. Throughout this presentation, I'll bring some things up about it, but I want to mention something right here. If you have a camera and you're trying to shoot JPEG, you're going to have some serious problems with that. Although JPEGs look good, they're actually designed, specifically designed as an 8-bit file, which means 2 to the 8th power, 256 shades of gray. They're actually designed to make the picture look as good as your eyes can perceive it, where it still looks like it's not very bad. It still looks pretty good. And that works great until you try to do something with a file. Let's take a look. If you have a 1-bit file, 2 to the 1 power is 2, you only have a white and a black. That's not a very good picture if you're going to take pictures of people. 2 bits would be 2 to the 2 power, or 4, you have black and white and 2 shades of gray. That's not going to look very good. If I keep going on and go through all of them, here's a JPEG. If you look at the data from the histogram, it looks pretty good, pretty solid. It looks great. But try editing the photo, and all of a sudden you'll notice that there's a lot of data missing. It has to kind of guess what it is. You'll get banding, and your picture is not going to look very good. So after all that work capturing it, a JPEG just won't handle it if you're going to do any editing at all. 12 bits, 2 to the 12, 4096. After editing, it still looks great. It shows the banding that you would get if you used a JPEG. And here's 16 bits. After editing, looks nice and smooth, like honey. Only a quick comment here. For those of you that are photographers or do a lot of imaging, normally what you want to do is what we call shoot to the right, which means shoot to the wider part of your histogram or overexpose a little bit your image. Do it on purpose. Make sure the histogram is still in the range of your sensor so you don't lose data. But there's a reason for that. If you look at it this happens to be a 12-bit. Half of all the data is in the first stop white area. 2,048 levels of tones are available to you. As you stop down each part and then get to the darker part of your image, down here you have 64 levels of data of toning. And 64 isn't too bad, but if this were an 8-bit image, you only have 8. So you're not, and that's where as astronomers are trying to capture things that are really, really faint. And so it's hard to do that, but whenever possible, overexpose it a little bit. And you'll be happy you did because you'll be able to edit it better. This shows a couple other examples. And then go ahead and process it in like EOS RAW, Camera Raw, or if you have Canon. There's Photoshop GIMP. If you don't have Photoshop, it's a free version, which is similar to Photoshop. And there are many other image processor programs. The point is, at this point, you want to reduce the noise, increase the contrast in a way that makes it look better. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. Okay, it looks like I overdid that. Key to successful astro imaging is designing, working through a careful workflow that you're following the process so you can kind of repeat the things you're doing, realistic expectations, and within that, reducing as much noise as possible and increasing the amount of signal from the object or the stars that you're photographing as possible. That's what it really comes down to. Now, what do I expect? If you are a little bit better than this, you can do it. If you're like this, I might have to talk with you a little bit. Go on. Okay. All right. That was kind of an introduction. If you haven't done any imaging before, start with something simple and give it a shot. Work with somebody. You'll be really surprised and be able to develop something that might be better than just for refrigerator mounting. Maybe for the wall. That would be awesome. 10 plus 2 is, I'm going to now kind of describe, here are some choices. If you've done a little bit, or at least know a little bit about it, what would be the next step? What are some of the decisions that you have to make now, assuming that you want to increase the quality, get a little bit better, produce better images, and you're able to do that? So I call this 10 plus 2. Kind of walking down a path toward developing your skills. I don't know where you are on this. And this particular order, maybe you can do different levels, different orders, that's fine. Just kind of just to give you some input as to, here's what some of your decisions can be, and also, is it worth it? What are the benefits of adding like a different scope or a camera or tripod? You know, is it worth the money and effort? That's kind of what I want to get today. Really good. Okay, I guess it comes down to how can I make what I'm doing better, step by step. You're not going to do it all at one time. It's not working really great. Okay, I'm going to ask you not to freak out because of the information that when I'm talking, if I talk too fast or whatever, if you don't get it, here's my point, is I have put together a sheet of paper for you. If you're interested in imaging or you're making another step, essentially my whole outline is on this piece of paper, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. You can come up and pick one up afterwards. All right. First 5, I'm going to try to go through pretty quickly. Let's do them one at a time. If you have a camera and a tripod, that's all you have. The very next step should be an intervalometer. Intervalometer is just a device that allows you to do 2 things, really. One, it allows you to take images that are longer than 30 seconds, which most cameras are limited by. And then second, it allows you to take multiple ones. Some intervalometer, no, this one maybe $25 or so, anywhere from 25 to 200, depending on what it can do. Some of them will allow you to change all your camera settings and take multiple, so you can set up a 50 shot, go in, have dinner, and come back down, and oh my gosh, it's done. You know, that's really a good feeling if you've never done that before. Anyway, that's a biggie. The second one I have here is filters. A lot of people kind of misunderstand, I think, filters. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this, kind of showing you why it might be a really good choice if you have been using filters. Now, I run the risk. I know half of you probably know this. The other half, maybe no, maybe don't care. I don't know. But let's give it a shot. Hydrogen gas is throughout the universe. Stars are mostly hydrogen, a little bit of helium, and then some of the other elements. If you have a nebula in outer space, mostly hydrogen gas, and you want to capture that on film, well, how can you do it, and what makes it good, what makes it work, what doesn't make it work? So here's the point I want to make. A hydrogen atom, which is this, has one proton in the center, get my pointer, and it has an electron usually going around it. If there's a star or an energetic source that gives off a lot of energy and radiation, it activates, or the atoms in there are activated, and the electron moves to a higher orbit, and which is cool, except it won't stay there. When it jumps back down, it gives off a photon of light. There's one jumping from n equals 3 to n equals 1, third level to this first level. That photon is what you want to capture when you're imaging. That's what the nebula is. It's the hydrogen atoms. So how do you capture that? What's the best way to do it? Well, and not to get too deep on it, but the electrons can jump a lot of different levels. There's actually 5 series, Lehman, Balmer, Bouchon, Bragg. But the one we're concerned about is the Balmer series. The reason that's important is because that's the visible part of the spectrum that your eyes and your camera lenses can see. The others are either ultraviolet, infrared, beyond the red, and so on. So there's all different energy. But the Balmer is the key one. Now, if you look at this first one, 656 nanometers. So, well, that is hydrogen alpha. If you take a look at the red line down below, that's the red light that would be coming from the hydrogen atom gases in outer space. That's what you want to catch. Second one, 486, well, that's hydrogen beta in the blue part of the spectrum. The other 434 and 410 are in the violet part of the spectrum, and those are important, but most of the energy are in these first two. Well, that's what you want to do. Well, here's what's cool about it. You take a look at this image. This is a UHC called ultra high contrast filter. If you look at it, this red line represents the transmission of light through that filter. Here it allows almost 100%, back down to 0, back up to almost 100%, and then comes back down again. Well, okay, why? Well, this is the hydrogen alpha line. This is the sulfur line. This is the hydrogen beta line. This is oxygen 3. And that's what the nebula is made of. And guess what these other ones are that it cuts off?
Light pollution.
Hey, very good. That's your sodium vapor and mercury vapor lights, of which I understand 92% of all our lights in the city are sodium. Well, you can cut out almost all of that. So you can take a great photo with a simple filter like that by knocking off a lot of the pollution. I think that's cool. Here's an example of one that I use my camera. Simple to put in, flip up the mirror, put it in, take your pictures. It won't be any good for taking pictures of people over daylight because it lets in more light and it will look kind of bluish, won't look good, but for the sky, it's amazing. All right, filters. I'll talk more about filters later and how narrowband imaging will make a big difference and when to decide to do that. Stacking. If you do filters and if you've got an intervalometer and do some of these other things, stacking is a big deal. Why? Well, increase signal to noise ratio and get better images, but here's an example. Here's a single frame of Jupiter. here is a stack of 300 frames. And if you look at that, you say, well, they kind of look both fuzzy. What's the big difference? 300 pictures in that's a heck of a lot of work, isn't it? Well, no, and here's why. If you look at it real close, this is a lot of noise. This, because there's 300 of them, you're able to take the signal from the 300 and put those together and get a strong signal, and yet your noise is pretty much limited to the level of 1. So you can increase your signal to noise ratio and get a much, much better picture. You might say, well, yeah, Brian, but that's not a better picture. Well, you don't understand. At this point, that's like the first step. If you do this, you can do these other steps, wavelet sharpening, deconvolution, and end up with a photo like this, worthy of mounting on the best frame in your house. That's really cool. All right. If you have 2 cameras, or if you have a DSLR you don't really care about, you can also move what's called an IR filter. DSLRs have an inherent problem. If that's what you're shooting, that's great. But sometimes you may have to make a choice. Hey, I want a better photo. How can I do it? One option is to remove this infrared filter. The filter's there because the sensor is very, very sensitive to not just the visible spectrum, but part of the deeper red, infrared part of the spectrum that your eyes can't see it. And so to make the photo look like you rather than somebody from Venus or something, they put these filters in there to block that out. Sounds great. Unfortunately, it blocks off also about 85 to 95% of the hydrogen alpha light that's coming in. So if you want to photograph nebulas, you can do it, but you're going to have long exposures, a lot of them, and it's a heck of a lot of work. You remove this, or get a camera that doesn't even have that in the first place, like a mono camera, then you'll get much more light from the nebulas. All right, now maybe you're at a point where, okay, I think I need a mount. You've got a tripod and you're taking pictures, but I want to go for 1 minute. I want to go for 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and take longer photos and get a better signal. Well, if you're talking about getting a mount, there's a lot of choices. And I'm going to go through quickly on this. If you're interested on my outline, it has most all of this stuff. Here is an Astro track. I have one here, for example. To use this, since I bought another one over there, I don't use that. In fact, we'll probably sell it, but it's normally considered of the portable ones that you can pick up in a suitcase, take with you. It's one of the most precise because of the gearing that's put together. But there's other choices. You can take a regular scope, a regular mount. Other small portable ones are coming up with new ones that are really cool. You almost put in your pocket and take with you. And these have been out for a while. They're about, what, $350. You say, well, is that accurate? Well, not really, but I'll tell you, it's 100 times more accurate than nothing. So you go from hundreds of photos you can take to thousands of photos you can take. You get something simple like this. And here's a little better one. You may want to even skip that and go to a go-to, not necessarily this one. This is from ASA, an Australian company that makes incredible telescopes. And I'm just trying to show here a mount similar to this or similar to the one I have over here that has a go-to. Now, go-to, is that worth the money? Well, I've heard people say, no. Well, I guess it's not if you don't have a job. And the reason it's important to me is once you have it set up, if you're actually trying to do some imaging and stuff, you can set up on your phone and say, okay, I want to go to this star. Push it. Hey, it's there. Have any of you spent like more than 5 minutes looking for something in the sky and darn it, it's just not there, and I can see the moon right in front of me, I can't even get it? This helps prevent some of that. Of course, you do have to align it right, a little bit more commitment, but huge improvement. Okay, let's try this one. One more time, there we go. That's a couple other possibilities. That CM25 is one that I have. What I was trying to point out there is that if you do get a mount like that, and you have to know how, you then have to learn how to polar align it with a North Star, and set it up with a computer. Okay, let's go into this next one, polar. Let's talk a little bit about polar alignment. Let's assume you have a telescope mount. Well, I'm not going to teach you how to align it. It's not a big deal. Most of them will have a axis which is designed to point right towards the north celestial pole. Fortunately enough, they'll have little devices like that. Working on right here, for example, same thing with a little red light on, and it will show you where to put Polaris. And if you put Polaris for that particular date on that spot, you're really close. And now, if you do that, all of a sudden your accuracy is dramatic. You can take 3, 5-minute pictures, 10. I've taken as much as 14-minute pictures just by using that, and it's actually worked pretty well. There are better, more expensive ways, but this actually for most people worked pretty well. All right, let's say it's time to buy a telescope. Okay, buy a telescope. See, that's a big deal. If you haven't had one, you've just been using lenses, what do you get? Well, it depends obviously on what kind of, what you want to do with it. If you want to do visual, buy the biggest sucker you can afford, you know. Buy a nice job that you can enjoy and bring a lot of light into it. In my case, that wasn't quite what I wanted. I wanted to be able to do imaging. So I'm looking at, yeah, I don't even need a big scope for this. In fact, this is the one that, my portable one, it's only a 65 millimeter. Here's a guiding scope. So I can do a lot with that. In fact, that picture that you saw of the moon, that first one there, was taken with that, with my DSLR just hanging off the back as it vibrated like this. So it's possible to do. First thing, big borrow, don't steal, but big borrow a friend's telescope or work out with them and try some different things to see what you like, whether it's a refractor or reflector. Point to remember is a normal telescope would look like this for a refractor. In this case, it has a doublet, we call 2 lenses in the front, but it's a real long tube. That means it has high magnification, long focal length. It also means the amount of light it collects it slowly. So it's very hard to use for astro imaging, photography. Astrographs, shorter, faster, which means they come to a bigger focus. Some of them are 3, some are 2. We call the third ones triplets or APOs. Some of them are 4 with a field flattener added in. But there's a lot of choices there. What do I suggest? My suggestion, and this is on the paper if you want to look at it, 65 to 80 millimeters would be a great scope to start with. Easy to use, easy to put around, easy to take photos with, get a lot of great success. You can always put a Barlow or something on it to magnify it until you feel ready that you want to go something bigger. That's my suggestion, unless you have a lot more money than I did. 400 to 600 millimeters, a pretty narrow focal range. Cost is pretty inexpensive, and I have some names of options down there. This is a Telview. This is an 85, I believe. Excellent, more expensive, unfortunately, but it's a beautiful scope. This is a Williams. This is an 81 millimeter f5.6, so it's pretty fast, great for imaging. In fact, I think it's one very similar to what Matt has that he uses. Small ones, big ones. Small does not mean bad, because you think, hey, I want a lot of light. Well, yeah, you do, but you want to be able to get great pictures, okay? So I will go through just some of these quickly. Don't be afraid to get catadioptric. There's Extravagant, for example. Celestron makes an advanced HD telescope, they call it. And although it's an M10, some of them you can actually put a I think it's like 5.2 or whatever it is, you put right on the camera, right on the front, and you got a really fast astrograph. I was very tempted to get this. So if somebody has one, I would like to try and let me know, we'll see how well it works. But it's a lot of telescope, a heck of a lot of telescope for the money.
It's F2, by the way. It's F2. So it's a very fast, the Hyperstar is F2.
Right. Here's some telescopes I and others would probably recommend. If you're interested in this list, just ask me afterwards. I'm not going to go into them at this time. Okay, you can spend more. We talked about triplets and Takahashi. There are a bunch of names. The point I want to bring out here is that if you're going to buy a telescope, the most important decision, and it's really hard because you want to buy that big lens, is you need to buy a mount that will make it really steady. Generally, people tell you to spend at least half of all the money you've got on the mount, get a really good mount, and as you upgrade the telescope, you can keep using the mount, but if you don't have a good mount, your telescope's going to be worthless in the first place. So that looks like an astrophysics there, 900 or 1100, that's very expensive, but it's a very good mount. Okay, more for less, you can go bigger lenses if you've got the dream. I met somebody that had a telescope like this, it was really, really nice. 1100, I think it was. That's like an extremely expensive mount, but the camera and everything, even the guiding scope is a Questar, which they don't make and have made for 40 years, but they're still $2,300 or so. But camera on the back. The point is, he was able to use what he got, probably build it up over a lifetime, and finally ended up with this. Okay, I'm going to go through this. It's okay to go with Newtonians, Cassegrainians. One of the best telescopes for the dollar, and it's amazing what you get, is like a Meade. This is a Celestron. I've had two of them in the past, and I like them. They're nice and portable. They're not necessarily the best for imaging. They're a little bit harder to use. If you have a wedge like that, it works better, but I found it difficult. My imaging first telescope was an 8-inch similar to this. My gosh, I added it up today 40 years ago. They were good enough to show myself, let's put it that way. Okay, let's say you have a telescope or whatever, and what would be some of the next things that are worth getting, that are worth your time, worth your money? Guiding. The fact that your telescope has a tracking mechanism which follows when you're lined up with the rotation of the Earth, that's a type of guiding. We call that tracking. But beyond that, normally someone will find, and this is an inexpensive step to do actually, put in another telescope. It doesn't have to be an expensive one. In fact, it can be a really cheap one. I've seen people use finder scopes to use them. With a little camera, you hook it up there, and with a camera, it's kind of interesting. If you have it, you know what the sensors are on the cameras. You might have a 10 megapixel or 20 megapixel sensor on your camera. Well, that of course means there's 20 million pixels. Now think about that, 20 million. So they're really, really small. The stars, with the algorithms on the computers that are designed for the guiders, now can position that star within 1/10 of 1 pixel. Well, you're going to get round stars and oblongs and things like that. And all it does is send little codes to the mount to say speed up or slow down a little bit. And you can do them, most of them can do them in both axes as well. Anyway, if you have a separate, that can be a very inexpensive thing to do. I've seen one person actually build one for 25 bucks using, some old computer parts. There are other types. I don't suggest those, for example, off-axis one. Those are used by almost every single professional telescope, but you can actually lose the star. More people have a problem with those, but it's another choice you have. Okay. One of the things you come down to, let's say I'm ready for a camera. How much time do I have? Do I have just 5 minutes? Okay, this will be really good. For 5 minutes, you're going to have a choice of mono or color cameras. You're going to buy an imaging camera. Imaging sensors are like this. The problem with it is if you have a DSLR or a color camera, only 1 out of every 4 of the pixels are red. And guess what? You're trying to take and capture the red nebulae, right? Hydrogen alpha. And so this already lost 75% of its sensitivity. They're a little bit simpler, but now the software has made it so much easy that even if you use a monochrome one, most of that work's done for you. Okay, let's go on to this. Here's an example of that, where the red, green, and blue. If the point I want to make out here that's worth mentioning is not just the red, green, and blue, but you can also use it for narrowband. Remember the light that's given off from the hydrogen? And this is your red, green, blue filters. Well, this is all you want to capture. But if you can do narrowband, guess what? You can get rid of almost all of that extemporaneous in the middle of the city, like here, photograph a weak nebula in outer space. It is cool to do it. You put a number of them together. You can do collect the hydrogen alpha with a narrowband filter. Here's some pictures that were taken by narrowband. And this particular one here was taken in the middle of the city. Notice all the red hydrogen clouds. You're not going to get that if you have just a DSLR. Okay. You think we have problems? Take a look at, with processing, you can do a little bit of a correction. But look at this. This is, I think this is Justin Naig's photo. This is his photograph at night in Singapore. I don't see any stars, do you? But after processing, he was able to get this. Why? Well, here's a picture before and after. Processing also allows you to bring out parts of the image that you can't see and work with it and subtract the lumen. So that's a whole nother level of expertise you can develop. And software, there's a lot to software, but it comes down to this. If you're now at the point where you have your own camera, when you take multiple photos, you also take some things called lights, which are your normal pictures, flats and darks and maybe biases, imperfections in the lens. You actually can subtract those out digitally, mathematically. And so it looks a whole lot better. You don't get those water spots. And same thing for the camera noise for the darks. And we kind of talked about calibration. So I think and processing, there's a bunch of tools you can look at. The symbol here, the way you can process, lots of choices there. That's almost another presentation. If you're doing a software, there's lots of different software you can use depending on what you're capturing. And I think I'm right near the end here. I want to, if you're going to do a remote control of your sequence, let's say you want to go in and go to sleep or something like that, well, then there's a lot of things to control. Software, mount, camera, filter wheels, focus, dome, shutter, rotation, things like that. Override for the weather. And that could be a problem. This happens to be my observatory, so I can go to bed at night and work on it. Fred is also building one. And I think the only reason I had this not only as an observatory, someone had asked earlier about coming to, wanting to see it. If anybody is interested, I'm taking it over there after the meeting. If anybody else wanted to come, they're welcome to as well. Okay, one final word. Take a hike. All right, I just have a quick announcement about a couple other things that relate to our imaging meetings.
But first,
a week from tonight, unfortunately, I am not going to be in the area, and I couldn't find anybody else to do it. So this month, July, we will not have a meeting. However, in August, I have Robert Arden. I don't know if he's here today. He's got a doctorate in optics as it relates to writing algorithms and really cool stuff. He's going to actually be presenting in August on how to do nightscapes. It'd be really cool. And then the following month, in September, which is actually I think the 4th of October or something, Matt is going to be presenting how he develops and processes his images to get his incredible photos as well. So that should be really fun. Only other thing is, I have one little point here I wanted to add, is that if you were one that doesn't have a telescope, don't want to bother with it, but you still want a really cool picture, for what it's worth, pick up one of these sheets I have listed on there how to get to this. This is a Opus. It's a NASA site where you can actually physically go down, download the raw data from their spacecraft. And then you can develop it, and that's your photo. Isn't that cool? You don't have to worry about capturing. If you do that, that is a fantastic way to start because you know you've got good data, and you can end up with a Pluto like Jupiter, which could have been done by an amateur, and it would be something you could put on your refrigerator as well. Also, Mars 27, for what it's worth, I think somebody else would probably say this, but Mars is in opposition with me. It will look bigger through the telescope on the 27th of Mars, and it will again until 2023. So you want to photograph Mars, what a fantastic time to do so. Thank you. Thank you. During the break.
Well, Brian, what I'd like to do is I'd like to present you with the famous CSAS mug for the presentation. We appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, Brian will be taking questions at the break time, so we're kind of going to move that to the break because we're kind of limited on time here. I have a couple of, first off, we have somebody here who's turning 70 tomorrow. And
Happy birthday, Bruce.
and as a matter of fact, it's our speaker here, Bryan Gibson, and it appears that we have a cake and refreshments for him. So we'll be having cake and refreshments at our break time. So happy birthday, Bryan. I have a couple of quick announcements that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting. For those of you who are at RMSS, glad your candles. You have to light your candles down.
Get the fire extinguisher. Dry your hands.
All right. For those of you that were at Star Stare and did not pick up your merchandise packet or the packet at all, Tom's got them over there. So check with him at the break and you can get those. Second of all, I know that we've been talking about this for a couple months. It's about CSAS jackets. I spoke with Alan Gorski. We need 6 of those jackets to order. We're currently at 4. So that's kind of on hold until we get these extra 2 jackets ordered. So if anybody wants a jacket, go on the forums. There's an order form there. And fill it out and send it to Alan, and we'll get the jacket order placed. Next, for those of you, for anybody really, but for those of you who haven't been here before, we have a lot of members that have done different things outside of this club, or part of the club, promote the club, but then outside the club. I could give a couple examples. Doug Cook, he wrote a really cool book. Hal and Bruce, they do KRCC spots every Monday morning, correct?
On the 9 a.m. 9 p.m.
We had Bruce and Dave Monday morning do an hour segment with 107.3 Mountain Country for astronomy related stuff. So, I mean, we got a lot of that stuff going on. We also have another member here tonight who's going to talk for about 5 minutes on stuff that he's doing. He's got a really cool website. Ron Sparkman, Stardom Space. So Ron, if you want to come forward and tell everybody what you're doing.
Hey, buddy. So I'm not 100% sure how I follow Bryan after that. So he's been actually a really cool person to me since I moved here to Colorado Springs and got me involved in a whole lot of things. So Bryan, thank you for doing everything that you do, inviting everybody over to your house for the astrophotography stuff. So hello everybody, I'm Ron Sparkman, and I'm the founder and publisher of the online space science media company called Stardom. So forgive me for reading off my phone. I've got a quick 5 minutes, and if you've ever spoken to me for any length of time, you know that I am a little bit notorious for my enthusiastic rambling. So tonight I want to share a quick background of where it all started for me, some of the milestones that the website and the team has hit so far, and the focus on what Stardom has accomplished this past weekend thanks to a few members of not only CSAS, but people here at Space Foundation. So as a teenager, I left my love of science behind after a rough go in high school, and in my 19, I became a professional DJ. So strangely, I discovered a voracious passion for space while at the peak of a career that I thought that I would end up doing for the rest of my life. I still do the DJing thing, but it's kind of taken a bit of a backseat. Successful professionally, but at a low point personally. I was sitting home on a particular afternoon when I saw the preview for Cosmos. I'm sure there's plenty of people here that saw the new Cosmos, not the old one. I wasn't around for that one yet. And I saw that it was premiering that evening, and I thought, you know what, why not give it a shot? So to say what I experienced that night was an epiphany is quite literally an astronomical understatement. By the point in the show where Neil has described the size of our universe and the possible multiverse and says feeling a little small, I couldn't have possibly chosen a more accurate description of how I was personally feeling. That was my impetus for change. I began to explore every TV show, book, audiobook, pretty much anything on the subject that I could find on space science. However, I had a hard time finding a solid resource for all the places to learn about space science online that broke it down in a way that an average Joe like me, who, by the way, did not graduate from high school, I got my GED before I started going to college, thanks to some people here, Travis being one of them. Astronomy was tough for me to find really anything on. So as I started putting all these sources together, I decided to start a WordPress website where I could aggregate the information that I was finding. That evolved into a full-blown website with science museum reviews, an ever-growing list of MOOCs, or massive open online courses for people that don't know who those are, what those are. They're amazing. They're free. Everybody from MIT to Khan Academy. That's pretty amazing resources out there. Started doing a continuing YouTube interview series with a variety of professional space scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Done quick one-on-ones at large events with science communicators like Phil Plait. Phil says hi, by the way.
Oh, go on.
Collaborations with
The
other...
answer is damn email.
I will absolutely do that. Collaborations with other major online science communicators, influencers, and so forth. We have a small team of writers and team members that are working on doing more series in the future, but I'm pretty sure that the first professionally shot series is probably the reason I was invited to talk tonight. This past weekend, Stardom launched a Telescope Astronomy 101 series called Clear Skies. The idea came to me a few years ago when I actually came to my first CSAS meeting. While everyone here was quite welcoming, I personally struggle with being antisocial when I feel out of place. I'm often nervous or scared to strike up conversation in a new environment, especially in one where I feel everyone around me is vastly more intelligent than I am. So I began to wonder if I could educate myself online with the basics so I wouldn't feel ignorant talking about it in person during the meetings. Couldn't find anything online that really stuck out to me, so I began to, as a go-to source for the basics. So I devised a plan to film an Astronomy 101 series somewhere down the road when I had a little bit more knowledge. Fast forward a bit, and I had posted or tweeted something on one of Stardom's pages when George White reached out to me. He was unaware I was a member because I hadn't been to a meeting in so long because of school. So later that summer, I was afforded the opportunity to do a live giveaway of a telescope, and I thought the perfect people to do it would be George and Eric White. So Travis here also joined in and helped us from the Space Foundation. Thank you very much, Travis. One of the telescopes I was given was supposed to be gifted to me, but I chose to donate to CSAS because the group has loaned me a telescope, but I have still yet to return. I'm sorry, Floyd, I still have it.
That's where that went.
I've still got it, promise. It's in great condition. It's been very well used. During that giveaway, Eric explained the basics of the telescope so beautifully that thousands of people watching were blown away by his knowledge. A light bulb went off, and I knew that he and his dad would be the perfect host for the series. So through a stroke of luck, I was able to meet local documentarian Isaac Frames, and the team began to organize the series. Thanks to the guidance of Discovery Center's Travis Shank, we had a location to film at. He was not only kind enough to let us film here, but chose us as a worthwhile enough project to donate not only the museum's time, but his day off to us to film. George and Eric did the same, not only volunteering to host the series, but they also penned the scripts for the series. So if you guys watch it, almost all that work is really between those two. In total, even with the end of video promotions for the Space Foundation, CSAS, and RMSS, the first season of the series clocks in at just under an hour. In an effort to get as many eyes on this project as possible, our first sponsor, MyRadar, donated 6 telescopes to Stardom for us to give away. We teamed up with popular space social media influencers and brands with a combined following of about 5,750,000 followers to give them away. The rules were simple. Like the starter page, tag your friends in the post, like and comment on the series. To say people have jumped at this opportunity is a vast understatement. On all 3 social media platforms, we were at roughly 12,000 likes and 9,000 comments on posts. Came out Friday. Now, the most important part is, are people watching the series? The answer is a resounding yes, and they love it. Nearly 1,500 likes, 1,000 plus positive comments, nearing 600 new subscribers, and over 3.5 days of collective watch time already. Again, it launched on Friday. So real quick, I want to have Eric stand up, and everybody please give him a round of applause. It is really incredible. Today, that skyrockets towards about 40 to 50 million during weather emergencies like hurricanes, blizzards, and what we experienced yesterday if you lived in Manitou Springs. Andy, the company's owner, is going to put the series on the app via the company's Vimeo channel. We might even see push notifications down the line, like where it was telling us storms were coming. It might be like, hey, listen, your skies are going to be clear out tonight. Check out the series, take out your telescope. I also have my second guest blog coming out this Thursday on Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk blog, and that will give us a bit of a final boost going into the weekend skill-wise. Again, this could not have been possible without George and Eric's months of hard work, Travis Shank, and our other friends and partners. So can you imagine what we will be able to do in a few months when I finally take Bruce's astronomy class at PBC this fall? So the sky's the limit. It's just the start of the adventure. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight.
Thank you.
You signed up for my class.
If you haven't seen the latest videos that he's done, they're actually, I think, posted on Facebook, and I think there's on some of our pages as well. They're actually very, very good. So even if you're an expert observer, you can always learn something from watching these videos. So I'm going to switch up the schedule a little bit. We're running a little bit behind time. Travis said it's okay if we stay a little bit later this evening if we have to. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to come back with what's up.
What's up?
And then we're going to get right into our business meeting right after that. So 10 minutes from now. So 7:40.
We're on.
During the break. And is there anybody here who hasn't signed
We've got Mars, and Bryan mentioned this, that Mars is going to be close to the Earth. It's closest it's been. It's already, you look tonight, if we have clear skies, you look tonight, and it's closer than it's been since 2003. It'll be the closest that it'll get again until 2050. So this is probably a pretty good time to get out there, go look at the different surface features that you can see when it's close up versus when it's just a little tiny red dot in the sky and rest of its apparition as it goes around in its orbit of its sun. If you take a look here, you've got what it looked like in May and what it's looking like here on when it's at its closest, which is actually July 31st, right? Opposition is this Friday. Opposition being when it's going to be directly opposite, but it's actually going to get even closer, and it's July 31st, which is its actual closest Earth time frame. So it's about the size of the disk of Jupiter, is what we're seeing through our telescopes. Pretty good sized apparition. So so get out. Go to, you don't have to go to a dark sky location or anything. It's brighter than any of the, except for Venus maybe, which is -4 almost, right? So 4.3, and it's going to get even brighter coming up. Other than that, it's now the brightest object in the sky to take a look at. So get out there while you can. There'll be a lot of different outreach opportunities, different places to go down to Starry Meadows or wherever. Come and take a look at Mars here in 2018 while it's close. Next slide. So here's where it's at. It's at just down at the bottom of Sagittarius there. Pretty easy to find. Look along the ecliptic. You're going to see Venus, then you got Jupiter, then you got Saturn, and just follow it, and then you got Mars. And not going to be able to really miss it, except if it's cloudy, like it has in monsoon season here in Colorado Springs the last couple of days. But still go look, because, hey, go outside right now, there might be some clear skies. That's what we've been having with outreach, and we'll talk about that too. Next slide, please. So then we have the perceived meteor showers of 2018. This is a great year for the meteor showers because it's during new moon weekend. So it's actually Sunday is the best night, the night of August 12th into the morning of the 13th. What I like to tell people, I have a hard time myself in identifying Perseus, but I always look for Cassiopeia, and it's underneath Cassiopeia below where the double cluster is there. That's where your radiant is. Get a good idea where that is. Look off about 30 degrees off to the side. Just look up into the night sky. If you're looking at sunset until around midnight, you're going to be looking at these grazers that go across just across the sky, and those are really cool to see and look at. And then after you get towards midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, when the main where you are on the face of the earth is where the earth is facing directly into that stream of debris that we're passing through, which is a comet Swift-Tuttle. It has about 130-year circle around, and we're going through its debris. So that's what this is caused by. That's when the main amount of that debris, we hit it head on, and so we get that where the meteors appear through that radiant. And then as we go further into the morning hours is when it peaks. Now, so I kind of gave an idea where to look. This is also a meteor shower that a lot of meteor showers, if you look at when do they peak and when do they fall off, they have a very sharp bell curve. They'll peak on one day, and then the next day you go look and you're not going to see that many meteors. This meteor shower actually starts all the way back in July 17th. It's already started, if you will. And it goes on a bell curve, and they'll have more and more meteors that can be seen every night until they peak on August 12th and 13th, and then they peter out going down and through the end of August 24th. So we're going to have some star parties. We're going to talk on our outreach schedule here in a second. We have some different star parties set up. You're not going to miss a lot. If you go to an event on a Friday night and the peak is Sunday night, You won't have as many meteors per hour as you would, but it's still a 50 to 100 meteor per hour event. And it'll just be a few less meteors on Friday night as say for Tuesday night. So you got a lot of several different nights of opportunity to go out and see this meteor shower. And it's also a great chance to try some of those techniques that Bryan talked about and set your camera up on a tripod, setting it up for 25 seconds, wide open or down one stop, and trying to get some of those exposures. See if you can get some of those meteors streaking across the sky. So a great time to start in the exploration of astrophotography if you're interested. Next slide. I think that's it on that. If we could just go to the outreach calendar, what we got, as you know, monsoon season is upon us. We've actually had some great events. We had, let me go back and talk. We did Green Mountain Falls. We were at the Green Box Arts Festival on the 3rd of July and had a great time up there. Got, I don't know how much money we got for that actually. I know that Matt gave money to the treasurer and it just all changed hands. So
and Cash did wrote it down somewhere. I think it's $200.
$200, so $200 for that. Then we on July 8th we went out to Camp Rocky, which is a Mennonite camp, but it was a group of conservationist kids and stuff. So I went and did a talk on light pollution and the effects of light pollution on wildlife and what we can do about it and how we can affect in conservation techniques of light pollution. And then we showed them the stars and we had a great time there. And they gave us a check for $75 for that night. Then we did fluorescent fossil beds, great time there. Last week we did, last Friday, Palmer Park, which it looked like it was going to be cloudy, and we got out there and the skies opened up and we had a great time observing the skies at Palmer Park last Friday. And then we did a Broadmoor event on Sunday that also looked like, oh my gosh, they're giving us money and it's going to be all cloudy. And we got out there and after sunset, once again, it opened up and had Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn, and that was awesome. So we got $500. Hopefully that's come in. It's in the mailbox if we haven't got it yet. Tomorrow we're supposed to be doing Garden of the Gods. We're going to make a call in the morning about that. I don't know yet if that event's going to go, just because again the weather, floods, and everything is going on. We have to kind of assess the weather situation and say, do we chance it and have everybody show up with our telescopes? And if we do, hey, I need help. Come out with your telescopes and help us out. Garden of the Gods, star party tomorrow night from 8:30 to 10. But we're going to make a final call in the morning on that. Right now, it's not looking very good, to be honest. Like 80% cloud cover and the same sort of stuff we've been dealing with the last 2 days here in the Springs area. So, but we'll make that final call. On Friday, I'm just going to be at Air Force Academy Library for a little library talk on Mousetronaut goes to Mars, and because Mars close approach, and oh, that's nice. I'm sorry. So I just watered my my phone. So I'm so excited, you know, my telescope brings all the kids to the park. So anyway, so yeah, I'm sorry. In the looking up, so you guys want to talk about that real quick while I
looking up's on the calendar.
Looking up and listen to them because they're awesome.
They're also available as a downloadable podcast.
They are podcasts as well. So if we look, let's go into August real quick. At the beginning of August, we have not a lot of events after the star party on Wednesday, and then my little talk on Friday at the end. I don't need any help with that. I'm just going to talk to a bunch of little kids about going to Mars and black holes, right? So our big weekend, it's going to be a busy weekend, that meteor shower weekend. That's the 10th of August, the 11th, and the 12th. We got fluorescent fossil beds dark sky program that Friday night, the 10th. And then we had set up a club member star party down at Starry Meadows. It's New Moon weekend. If you want to go down there and go set up, there's going to be quite a few people, I think, going down to Starry Meadows and enjoying themselves and go and take advantage of being a member, that you get to use our property that's down there in the Gardner area, and it is open again. But Mueller State Park also asked us to do an event, and so I'm going to take advantage of that, of having 100+ people setting up at the visitor center at Mueller State Park, and we'll watch the meteor shower and just enjoy looking at the skies with whatever telescopes that can come up and support, whether that's just me or we have other people that aren't going down to our starry meadows who want to come out and help. Bring up a telescope, point, hey, there's a meteor, it's not that hard. And Mueller State Park's a great place to go and look at the skies. And then I'm not really advertising it a whole lot. I could use help with it though, is on Sunday night, I'm going to be out at Rama State Wildlife Area out east with some Girl Scouts. I got a Girl Scout troop that they want to learn about the night sky. They want to get ready for the Girl Scouts have some new badges coming out at the end of this year, and then some additional ones at the end of next year, I think it is. And they're already being told, hey, contact your local astronomy club. Find out about how they can help you, and it's all about observing, actual physical, hands-on, not just learn the constellations or learn these stars, but actually getting them some practice experience behind looking through a telescope. So that's what I'm going to be doing on Sunday with them, is looking at seeing a meteor shower, but then we can start working on looking at the different planets and learning the order of the planets and going through all of that kind of fun stuff with these kid groups to get them involved. And then later on, we got down the road, we got another Girl Scout camp event coming up that I'm excited about in September, but we'll talk about that at our next What's Up and Outreach talk. So that's all I have for this time around. So thank you for your time.
Okay, we're going to move now into the CSAS board has approved moving forward with this discussion. That is why we are bringing this to the members to vote on today. So Jason, would you like to come up here? Jill, I think maybe for the treasurer information, it might be helpful for this conversation.
Money.
First of all, thank you all for the people that chose to be involved in this process, to be a part of not just what we do, but how we want to do this. And it's not over yet, but it's very appreciated. Go ahead to the next slide. So, unless you were behind a rock, the last 6 months, actually 12 months, that you know that we've been trying to get power to Starry Meadows. And in that, there are some reasons for that. Charging stations, although we'd obviously need to have write up some guidelines on how to use that, part of that process. Food vendors at night would be nice, so we don't have to have, cold food, generators running, yes. Some benefits there. RMS presenters, we would no longer need to rely upon generators anymore. Be quiet. Listening to the presenter is wonderful, but you know what's better? Listening to cell phone.
Some music interlude.
Listening to them without the constant noise, or the risk of it turning off randomly, which of course never happens. There's also some future possibilities. Security cameras, you have power there all the time. We could actually, instead of wondering what the conditions are there, we could look on a web page and see what's going on, see who's down there.
They're live.
Yeah. Maybe an observatory at some point that, that needs AC power. Who knows? Did it mention no more generators? No. So this is a pretty neat thing, and we've been working at it for some time. Next slide, please. So this is the general layout that we've agreed upon here. So for those of you that are familiar with the property, we have a neighbor up here, which is not really shown, but this is Rhonda and Lou Delora's house over here, and they've got a barn, and we're gonna tap off a pole that'll be right here, and then it's gonna go down here into I guess this is the eastern meadow here. And then now you see a lot of trees here, so at some point, if you approve this as a membership, then we're gonna schedule a Starry Meadows workday. And then we're going to go and get some chainsaws and have a little fun with that. So, hopefully, what could go wrong? We have an industrial wood chipper. I mean, you know, plenty of chainsaws. It should be fun. And hopefully it should. Yes.
If it happens, we even have a doctor too.
Sweet. Get everything covered. So hopefully this shouldn't mar the experience of the property. I know we will be removing a number of trees, but we've been spending some time thinking about this carefully on how to best do this without destroying the experience. So we should be all right there. So we're gonna send it through here. There'll be the final poll will be here, and somewhere in between here and then I use this because I didn't have the satellite picture. Well, okay, there was one. I chose not to use it, but this would be the northeast corner of our building. Somewhere between here, probably about here, we'll have a power pedestal. So this is about 200 feet. So it'll be somewhere in here, and it'll be on the ground from here to here. So there are 4 power poles. They're 40 feet across, 200 feet of buried lines. Anyway, you can see that right there. We had a wonderful meeting with the board to kind of go over this just when we thought it was the right way, and we changed it again. And so, well, believe that this is the right way to go. So, and it was approved. So next slide, please. So financials, the important part. So yeah, 10,000 to San Isabel. It's 56 to TNT Electric. That's for running the 200 amp panel that we're going to have on the side of the building and connecting it via the wire to the pedestal. 5,000 to Rhonda and Lou DeLaura. You get nothing for free. They invested on their property to get their own power lines in. So this is to help compensate them a little bit. It's half what it used to be. Sometimes you got to pay to play. So that's part of that. $1,000 for backhoe and associated fees. And then the rest, probably unknown costs, some town hall wiring. There's always surprises, to be honest, and we don't want to have to come out to you again for another vote. So we'd like to round this to request $25K on this project. Go ahead, next slide. So just to go over the steps here, kind of near-term and long-term, so you understand. So assuming we get membership approval, we'll pay San Isabel Electric. They will go out there, mark some trees. I'll probably go with them for removal. Then we'll schedule that work day with chainsaws. We'll probably bring out hamburgers and all sorts of drinks, non-alcoholic. I'm sure that's obvious. Afterwards. Oh, maybe afterwards. Yeah, there we go. And then once that's done, they'll install poles into the line pedestal, and we'll rent a backhoe. We'll have some fun with that. TNT Electric will install the panel and do the wiring. County will inspect the electrical work. Then we'll go back out there. We'll bury the trench. That's the easy stuff, and celebrate.
Power plug into your link.
So at that point, we should have one power socket. Yes, not much, but it costs us a lot of money to have these guys do it, and we can do it for a lot less than that. So, but we'll have one socket to plug things in. You know, extension cords, anyone? We might also get what are those surge protectors? No generators. You might actually get a surge protector built in there. That may be just a few $100 into this. So we haven't decided, but that's probably going to happen. Anyway, so that's the near term. Longer term, the town hall power outlets will get taken care of. We just need to spend a little bit of time doing that right. We wanted to make sure we took care of one part of this at a time, so we didn't kind of get it all mushed together. And then we'll create the charging stations along with some guidelines for use that we'll decide in the Starry Meadows Committee, and the board will approve, hopefully. And this gives us opportunities for the future. So, you know, maybe we'll upgrade the AV equipment. Honestly, it probably could use it there. This would obviously be a separate money list in the future side, but it's something that we definitely should be considering. There's other Starry Meadows locations that we might decide in the future that we want to run power to, along with what we talked about on the other slide with security cameras. Who knows? Yes, Jill.
Just to be clear, the actual more than one outlet in the town hall, that's a later vote for a later time. We're voting
No.
25K or that.
Thank you. Good question. The 25K, I expect that this is going to accomplish all of this and this. There's no reason to believe this is the only thing that would be separate on this. So if there's a surprise, and then you'll know. But that's the intention there. It shouldn't cost us that much, unless a big surprise happens somewhere in here, you know. But that's why we left a little bit of room, so we can take care of all these things. Yes?
I just have some clarifying questions. Just the power pedestal that's out in the trees that goes from pole to ground, that's where the meter's going to be?
Yes.
And there's probably not a switch there, right?
A switch.
I mean, cut off.
Main switch. Main shut off switch.
I believe that there is.
There will be a main switch.
I believe there
okay.
is. I don't know that we're going to necessarily have access to that one. I know we would have it in the panel.
And then we're going to run wires underground to the front of the building. And
Yes.
There's going to be a service panel in there.
Yep.
What size?
200 amp.
200 amps, okay. And so there'll be several spots for breakers that we can run circuits
Yes,
off
correct.
of there. Okay. I just wanted more details so that, because that means a lot to probably a lot
No
of
problem.
people here in the building.
No problem.
Jason,
Yes.
at that point there, I do know that we can do rough-in electric on our own, but we have to have a licensed certified electrician to connect everything up.
Okay, so we could run it and then they would look at it and then officially connect it? Is that my understanding?
You get your inspection, then you have a certified licensed electrician go, oh yeah, these go here. Even though, you know, we can do it ourselves, but it has to be, to do it legal, it has to be a certified electrician.
Okay.
Jason?
Yes.
Has there been a review of what all we anticipate hooking up to this line, and if this is a big enough supply to accommodate where we want to go, at least for the near future?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, this is going to be more than what we need anytime, anywhere in the near future. If we ever go beyond this, it's because we have a large dome that's housing a bowler and Shivens.
Well,
and even that, I don't know that we need that.
200 amps is a typical household service, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that's pretty standard.
We've got enough power to run a house.
Yeah.
Well, but we're talking about potentially putting an observatory out there. I would imagine it would be easier to increase the supply now.
It costs a bit more, and the observatories do not actually take that much power. You'd be surprised.
Jason, let me jump in. Steve, one thing to remember is shared time. You're not going to be using everything all the time. I've got the same thing at my house, and so does everyone else. So the heaviest draw is not going to be continual. So even if you got the observatory going, other things may not be happening at the same time. So 200 should be plenty.
And then on top of that, you're going to have your individual breakers. You have a 200 amp panel with replacement for 60 breakers at anywhere between 10 and 30 amps. So.
Yep. Very good.
Sorry.
Oh, just real quick, who pulls the permit? And I would expect it's TT.
It's TNT Electric. Yes.
Did they fold that into their cost?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Al.
Thanks. You mentioned you were going to get a backhoe.
Yes. After talking to Lou, he made it very clear that he went through the same process, same land that we have, and he had a ditch witch and he broke 3 chains. And those people that he rented from were pretty clear. You break it again, there's going to be consequences. And he said, "Look, save yourself some trouble. Just get a backhoe." So instead of a trencher, yeah, trencher would be easy. But we have some commercial drivers here.
Equipment operators.
Yep. equipment operators, so.
Concrete soil. I have a second question on the observatory. Is that gonna run from that?
Not
Where the pole is, or is it gonna run from the building?
right, currently it's not going to be run to it, not yet. Right now, it doesn't really need it, anything more than a car battery with a little solar power adjuster, does not take much power. We can decide to run power out to it, it's a bit of a distance though. So I think that needs to be considered separate when we need it in the future.
So are we still gonna do the paths out there, or is that been decided?
That's a discussion for another time, basically. Right now, we're just kind of putting that on hold. And, you know, we'll get this out, and then if we decide we want to do pads, then we'll discuss it in our committee meeting.
But your question is, if we're gonna put pads out there, this is gonna be enough service?
Well, we should plan to have service for both, or just start the path.
And I expect it will be, because the telescope pads aren't gonna take that much power either.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it would take that much power. It should be fine.
It'd be 1 or 2 circuits.
Bruce?
Want to make sure we clarify, charging stations does not include pulling your RV up to charge things.
Or your Tesla.
Or your Tesla.
Your Tesla. Thank you, sir.
To be clear, this is not intended for RV charging at this point. If we want to go that route, we'll deliberately make that decision and we'll go that way.
Hey, Jason?
Yes.
So, maybe this is a dumb question, but you said we're basically tapping the neighbor's electricity.
Yes.
Are we paying them for that?
For that luxury, yes, we are.
Well, I mean, presumably monthly, we're paying an electric bill.
Oh, yes, it's a one-time fee. It's a one-time donation to our neighbors because they paid to get a lot of money to get that out there. And the alternative, well, frankly, these poles are $1,600 a pole. And instead of doing 4 poles, it might be more like 14.
We're tapping into the power company's power on the neighbor's.
On the neighbor, yes, who paid to get.
We're not tapping into the neighbor's power, we're tapping into the power company's power on the neighbor's property.
So if I was able to bring out the whole map, basically you would see, like, we're getting power from here to here. Well, if we were to extend beyond this, it would go up like 5 times the distance that way, and then it would go way out there. You spent a lot of money getting it out there. So we're just compensating a little bit.
So even at 5,000, that's still a heck of a deal for us.
It is a heck of a deal, and it used to be twice as much, and it's half that now. It would cost us a lot more if we decided that we didn't feel we wanted to play nice with our neighbors.
It's the value of building.
But it's a one-time payment.
It's a one-time payment, yeah.
There's nothing in the future.
Is there
Correct.
a minimum payment from the electric?
Nope, it's paid in full before they'll lift a finger.
Monthly service.
Yes, there is. There is a monthly service charge as well as anything that we would spend. Forgive me, I forget at the top of my head what it was. Al, you probably know. It was like 20.
I think it's like $35.
Is it $35?
We don't use any power.
You don't use any?
We're billed like a minimum of $35.
Something like that, yeah. It's not very much.
So in June, it'll be $45.
Probably.
Yeah, we'll see.
But we do have the option in the future of installing solar
Yes.
panels that can generate electricity.
We could, yes.
Back into the.
Yes, we
sewer
could.
And basically offset our monthly.
Yes.
costs.
Yep, that's another direction we could go down. Yeah.
So, so we're basically voting on 25K tonight.
Yes, you are voting on 25K. Do you want to move this project forward?
What percentage of our coffers is that? What does that leave us?
Treasurer.
We have
In case some-
$41,000 in our coffers.
Sorry, say that.
$41,000.
Rich.
We had a very good So a different way of putting it is, we got $12,000 out of our MSS this year. We had a very, very profitable year. So that has really helped us, that we have quite a lot in our coffers. Our annual expenses, it depends on how you wanna do the money, but if our MSS was canceled, let's put it that way. For whatever reason, we could not hold it, did not get any money, then we have about $5,000 a year in expenses, and we can find ways to make that less. In other words, we have enough to live off of for 3 years of not having an RMSS, even after we pay for the electricity.
Sorry.
Jason?
Yes.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. There was something besides charging stations that we were talking about.
No ideas.
And I was wondering why that wasn't included into the longer term. Something that we need.
Something besides charging stations, you say.
I'm not sure. What else other than charging stations?
I'll think of it, go ahead.
Outlets for the vendors.
All right, next page. Oh, we can still answer questions if you can come up with them, but.
Security and like a weather station you were talking about.
Yep.
You know, the capability to see what's going on down there, see what the weather's like down there.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that with the power.
Yeah. And Wi-Fi access?
Probably be, in that case, it would probably be something cell-based, but I remember I was talking to Lou about that a little bit. But I don't remember all the details. I know he had a satellite from one of the mountains that he was getting it off of. And he had suggested that they weren't adding any more users. And I said, interesting. We should talk about this some more another time. But it's definitely doable. I don't know which method of power that we would end up using, but that's, again, something we could kind of go down that road, another day. No problem. So timetables, this should be able to be done by RMSS 2019. Kind of a stretch goal. It would be nice to get it done by September Skies Star Stare. That being said, unfortunately, due to the spring fire, it's kind of difficult to really predict the timetable. And when I talked to Richard from San Isabel, he made it pretty clear they're pretty behind schedule right now. So, we just kind of work with him. When we got another year till RMSS. We'll see what happens. But I don't want to promise any dates. There's just too many variables in here. Sorry.
Question, Jason? Are the figures that you gave us, are those locked in? Are we signed off with San Isabel for that? Or not?
There's a few $100 or something to add to it. That might change that a little bit. But that's the bid that he gave. It actually might go down the 200-foot distance. And because of the distance from the power pole to the pedestal, it's going to be underground, and we get that for free. So it actually might get smaller and get a little cheaper, which I'm happy to accept. And the San Isabel Electric, that was told to me over the phone, and I had it written down, and he said that's what it was. So yes, that's locked in. That's locked in. These are the prices that it should be, assuming we don't get any surprises.
But that's where your cushion is.
What? That's where the cushion. That's where the cushion is. Yeah, and that's just we're asking for $25K. The permission to spend up to $25K doesn't mean we're going to spend that amount. So we just want that because unknown costs and stuff.
Good job.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you all again who helped out with this. I know it's to do, Yeah, it's a little bit of fun.
Okay, I need to do a couple of books. Needs to be defined or determined here if we have a quorum. Otherwise, we cannot proceed with this vote. Quorum is defined as greater than 50% of the active membership. Quorum is not achieved. No formal business may be conducted at a meeting. Mr. Secretary, do we have quorum?
Mr. President, We have a quorum.
Okay. Is there anybody here at this meeting that would prefer a handwritten vote, or can we go with a hands up? Okay, so as the president of this, to install grid electrical power to our Starry Meadows property in Gardner, Colorado. All of those in favor, please raise your hand. All of those not in favor, please raise your hand. Mr. Secretary, you can record that as a unanimous decision. Okay, great. Congratulations, everybody. That's awesome. Next up on the list here, we're going to move right along. Tom, would you like to make mention of next year?
When is the next solar eclipse? And also, by the way, it's costs more than a couple of tanks of gas too. Is there anyone here interested in going as a group? Anybody? How many maybes? Maybe. Okay, so I'll tell you what, maybe we should start something up on the forums to see what kind of interest we have. Okay? It's kind of fun to go down to this group. I've done, just so you know, I've done, besides the one last year, I saw 3 other total eclipses, all by way of cruise ships, because, you know, 3/4 of the Earth is ocean, and it means 3/4 of the total eclipse of the sun occur over ocean as well. And so it's always a tough sell, but I need to convince the wife that you go on a cruise to see it. This time it won't be, it'll be on a van. So this is but it's not that bad.
It's ocean also.
Well, yeah, it is, but I might rather be on land if I can, just because it's a little steady. Can I have a minute to talk about our MSS?
Yes.
Our MSS is over, done, it's in the books, thank you. We do it on next year. So what I want to do is plant seed. We need a theme for next year, and then and so I'm be sending out an email, putting some stuff up on social media, starting to request people to submit ideas for themes and logos. So also, we have time as it turns out. I still have a couple of pieces of merchandise people ordered that haven't been picked up yet. I think everyone that is here that had.
I'm supposed to pick up Vicky's also, so.
Oh, you are?
Broken
Okay,
Vicky's.
And yep, the other thing I want to say is if you signed up and paid for RMSS, but you couldn't make it for whatever reason, have your packet here. And you want to get your packet because it has your bin in it, it's got a 4 gig memory stick and a bunch of other stuff that you paid for. So if you didn't make it, come up and get your packet. And lastly, our Jim West Youth in Science Memorial Lecture, we now have Rachel Garwood's name engraved on the plaque. So
One last thing regarding Star Stare is that we are looking for a new kids director because Dave wants to take some time off. Some suggestions have been made about maybe making a dual purpose type role or having several people do it, so it's not such a. Please.
Why did I call in?
Everyone for working as much as we've done on the long-term committee. It's been a long day. Fundamentally, what we were developing was we took a lot of specific statements. All those folks who attended the meetings were very informative in terms of what our inputs are, how we're establishing ourselves, and identify growth, scope to the community, astrotourism, conservation. These are the things and experiences that were needed to be integrated into this. What we did from this was develop a set of goals and mission statement. Now, we've never had a truly defined mission statement. Yes, somewhat in the bylaws, but not as clearly stated. What we ended up developing first were the set of goals, and then from there we derived out 2 specific mission statements. Statement 1, and these are not choices, we have 2 mission statements. Promote the enjoyment of amateur astronomy for its members of the Rocky Mountain region. That's a clear identity right there. That's who we are. We take our scopes out for ourselves and for our community. Notice Rocky Mountain region. Give me the spatial limitation of that. I can call Rocky Mountain for a long way. So it's a really good one. That was an interesting one, turning around a lot of set of phrases we're happy with. The second one is also the identity of this club. We are a recognized leader. Talk to the Night Sky Network. We're rated number 5 for our outreach programs. You've had scientists in front of you here. Bryan Bagenal, talking about missions, educators, communicators, amateur. We are the avenue to bring everybody in. That's part of our identity.
We're the #1 rated download at KRCC.
Yes, looking up programs. See, that's another part of this as part of our identity. We're bringing our identity to the public, and we are the experts in amateur astronomy around here. In many cases, especially the astrophotography folks, you're kind of the professional astronomers in many ways, because there's a lot of cringing as professionals wish they could take pictures as well as you guys do. The key here is also, you notice, to advance astronomy and science literacy. That's key. That's important as part of our identity, simply because the Space Foundation, we get their support because that's part of their mission statement. But this continues to grow because we want to continue looking at our future. Once you have your mission statements, we work to the specific goals that identify what we want to do. One of the first 12 slides. No, there's only a few of them here. Advocate astronomy. I'm not going to read all of these to you. You'll be able to reach them. Each one has been worked out very specifically. They can be considered a priority, #1, #2, #3, but they also work independently of each other. I'm going to let each of you read these as we go through. Some of these we want very specific verbiage in here, showing the depth of what and who we reach as a goal, because when we hunt for grants, we want to be able to clearly identify this is a stated goal, because there are people like, wait, you do that? Here's money. And that's important for our grant writers. Kind of gesturing in this particular direction because they've been trained in it. Any questions on these 3 right here? Next 3. Sponsor and maintain, improve our national astronomical event on club-owned property, and enhance the experience for attendees. It gets better every year. End of story. I don't think we've backtracked any year that we've ever done RMSS, but it is one of our primary goals. We host the only Premier Star Party in the Rocky Mountains that I'm aware of. So are there ones I'm not aware of? Okay, good. I'd like to double check that. We are continually trying to increase membership, improve your experience. It's not the board. It's every individual in here getting more and more out of astronomy by being social and working with this, both for your knowledge and your observational skills. You want an example of observational skills knowledge? Mr. Bidlack is a great example of that, having just achieved his Messier Award tonight. That is fantastic. So
like there's nebula up there.
Yeah, we know he knows how to point a telescope now, which is really good. He can be accepted into the tribe. Encourage and train a community of volunteers. This goes to the outreach, because you know what? We can't grow as a club, and you can't grow in terms of your experience unless you join the outreach. Come out and talk. Mr. I'm quiet and shy, look where you're doing right now. This is growth of an individual, growth as a social. This is an important goal that keeps linking back to many of these other goals as we're going through. Next one. Year-round, safe, convenient, enjoyable dark sky access for new people and the old people. Not meaning old people.
Yeah,
but you know where I'm going with that one. Conduct fundraising efforts, because we have to keep the treasurer happy. If you do not keep the treasurer happy, life is miserable for Jason. No, but that's how we do things like, hey, guess what? We've got power on our site now. That's how we do this. We have avenues besides RMSS, but we also have the outreach programs where we gain monies coming in and getting those for that. And then encourage and advocate dark sky initiatives, dealing with the Astronomical League and the International Dark Sky Association. So you see these 9 goals tie back to those mission statements on multiple levels, and every single one of the words that we looked at. Where do we go from here now that we've established a mission statement and goals? We start moving to our first project that can be sustained by these goals and mission statements, that we start hunting and looking for grants so that we can get the money that is beyond our capability of just our normal annual funding. Anyone is aware of what our next level project is? It's the Air Force Academy telescope that we are now officially acquired. I've been authorized to let everyone know from the board. They've asked me to step up to take on that project. I will warn you, I am going to be aggressive and take it on like a program manager, which means I'm going to have clear identification. But we need people to step up and help. We're going to get an announcement out sometime in August and start setting up specific items that need to be addressed, a game plan for what needs to be done, timelines, and so forth. I invite any level of expertise to come in. In fact, in some cases, great expertise is wonderful. Clueless actually is extremely helpful because you can go, but wait a minute, explain that one to me before we all start running off down a trench. So I value all experience when these kind of programs go through. But our next goal is to get a home and get that telescope integrated into our efforts here at this club. Any questions?
Back up and show where that is a goal. It's down around 3 or 4. Go back up. More back.
This one does it. This one does it. Next. This one does it. And this one does it. Specifically right here. Permanent instrument telescope. We now have another satellite. Notice the terminology we're using. Gee whiz, where did we come up with this terminology? So, yeah, and you'll notice one of the things that was interesting argument in some of our aspects is we're not doing STEM, we're doing STEAM. And I'll tell you one of the simple arguments for that. Our astrophotography folks, you are artisans. Besides technological experts, that artistry is inspiring to bring people in here. So we wanted to make sure that was included across the board. Questions? How many people want to be part of the committee? Cool. Good. I want Lily on this committee. Thank you for volunteering. I can't see Rose. Oh, Rose has her hand up too. Okay. Thank you, Rose.
You gotta bring peeps though.
Yeah. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Well, I think that sums up our meeting for this evening. Does anybody else have anything else besides Tom? An email that went out this morning from George. If you didn't receive it, we will put up that email on the forum so that you can see it. Did you get it? Well, maybe you're not active. Maybe you can pay your bill.
He still didn't pay his bill.
So check your email. It's August 4th at 4 or 5 p.m. Black Forest Regional Park, right up the chute. It's not too far from town. We're going to be serving probably hot dogs and brats or something like that. And then there's all sorts of details in that email. So check that out or check the forums and see if you have it. Thanks for reminding me about that, Tom.
Bring your walking shoes, like great path.
Yes, there's a lot of paths there. There's horseshoes, like a little soccer field, tennis courts.
Can we fly drones?
I did, yeah, problem. Well, no, it's a county park. It's
Thank
not.
you, want to make sure we cover
So,
that.
other than that, if you have not filled out, if you're a visitor and you haven't filled out a visitor form or card, please do so we can get a hold of you in the future and tell us what you thought of the meeting tonight. Other than that, we are adjourned. Thank you.